Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and good morning. My name is Dr. Muhammad Naseem, and today my topic of presentation is the treatment of male-related infertility, for which my moderator is Dr. Riaz Laghari. Today, in my presentation, I will be focusing on these four topics, which include transurethral resection of the ejaculatory duct, vasectomy and vasovasostomy, assisted reproductive technique, and a short topic on adaptation. But before going to start these bypass surgery, it's important to give a quick look into the relevant anatomy of the structure. After the release of the sperms into the seminiferous tubules, it enters into the retitestes, and from there it enters into the appendicules, and from there it enters into a comma-shaped structure called the epididymis. The epididymis is actually attached on the posterolateral surface of the testes, and it attached to the testis on its lower pole by a fibrous tissue. This epididymis progressively and distally become vas deferens, which is also known as ductus deferens. The vas deferens or ductus deferens is around 30 to 35 centimeter in length, and then enter in the spermatic cord posterior to the vessels, and then it enter into the inguinal canal and enter into the pelvis lateral into the epigastric vessels. This vas deferens terminate by forming ejaculatory duct. It gave in a lateral outpouching called the seminal vesicle. This seminal vesicle producing an alkaline fluid. That alkaline fluid help to neutralize the acidity of the prostatic urethra and that of vagina in order to prevent the destruction of the sperms in the acidic environment. It also produces fructose, which help to keep the sperm survival and keep it and give energy and motile and keep the sperm motile. The ejaculatory duct, which is located at the junction of vas deferens and seminal vesicles, it enter into the verumentanum and open into the prostatic urethra. So we will be discussing actually various obstruction and their treatment at this level. I mean, we will be discussing the treatment of obstruction at the level of ejaculatory duct, and then we will discuss the treatment of obstruction at the level of vas deferens and then the epididymis. So transurethral resection of the ejaculatory duct. Obstruction of the ejaculatory duct can lead to obstructive azoospermia. And transurethral resection of the ejaculatory duct can relieve this obstruction. The causes of this ejaculatory duct obstruction can be congenital, like congenital prostatic abscess, or it can be acquired in a condition like chronic prostatitis or due to extrinsic compression of the ejaculatory duct by prostate or seminal vesicle. Or it may be due to post-surgical condition like a bladder neck surgery. So the counseling of the patient and their partner should be done regarding the risk and benefits of the surgical reconstruction, as well as the alternative like in vitro fertilization, microsurgical testicular sperm extraction, donor sperm insemination, and adaptation. These are all viable options. So work for transurethral resection of the ejaculatory duct is important. We will do DRE, which may reveal a midline cystic structure. Historically, vasography was using for the confirmation or diagnosis of TURED, but on coming of transrectal sonography, now it's a key for diagnosis. Semen analysis would be advised, which will be showing low ejaculate volume, absence of seminal fructose, and low in azoospermia. The technique for TURED is the resectoscope with 22 FR cutting loop is engaged with a finger placed in the rectum, providing interior displacement of the posterior lobe of the prostate. As the ejaculatory duct course between the bladder neck and the verumentanum and exit at the level of and along the lateral aspect of the verumentanum. So resection of the veru upon reveals a dilated ejaculatory duct orifice or cyst cavity. Resection should be carried out in this region with a great care, to preserve the bladder neck proximally, the striated sphincter distally, and the rectal mucosa posteriorly. The apex of indigo carmine from dilated orifice confirm adequate resection. Excessive coagulation must be avoided in order to prevent a later on reobstruction. A polycatheter is left overnight and the patient receive an additional 7 days of oral antibiotic. These are some complication of TORED, which include reflex of urine into the ejaculated duct or into the vas or into the seminal vesicle can occur after majority of resection. Epididymitis can occur due to reflex, which may be acute or chronic. As retrograde ejaculation is common even in TRPT, so it's also common in TORED. So TER should be performed only in obstructive azoospermic male, not in non-obstructive azoospermia, or in oligoasthenospermic male, and only after the couple has stated that they are unwilling to do in vitro fertilization and have been fully apprised of the risk of TER. So this is a diagrammatic representation. Now we will be discussing vasectomy and vasovasostomy. We will be focusing a lot on vasovasostomy. As vasectomy is a permanent method of contraception, and we are going here to discuss only the method of treatment of male-related infertility. So we will be focusing on vasovasostomy. So how to reverse a vasectomy? We will use for that vasovasostomy. And now what is vasovasostomy? This is a typical straightforward vasectomy reversal. It means that the portion which is obstructed is excluded and the area above and below is anastomosis. Survey suggests that 2 to 6% of vasectomized men will ultimately seek reversal, and up to 20% express interest in future fertility. Pre-op evaluation is important, which include that the patient must be having adequate spermatogenesis. He must be having a pre-history of natural fertility pre-vasectomy. Examination should be done of the testes. The female partner, which is very important, should be evaluated by a gynecologist in order to exclude the female cause of infertility. A thorough examination should be done to look for varicocele, which is a most important examining finding and can significantly impact the fertility, and that can be surgically corrected at the time of vasectomy reversal. The counseling of the patient is important. Patient and their partner should be counseled regarding the risk, benefit of surgical reconstruction, as well as the alternative procedure like in vitro fertilization, microsurgical testicular sperm extraction, donor sperm insemination, and adoption are all viable options. So the indication for this condition is the obstruction. If there is obstruction at the level of vas, then we will do vasovasostomy. If the obstruction is at the level of epididymis, then we will go for vasoepididymostomies. So we will be discussing basically vasovasostomy here. And the goal of both procedure in order to restore the genital tract patency and ultimately to allow conception. The procedure are not indicated for non-obstructive causes of azoospermia. This is only for the obstructive causes of azoospermia. There are two surgical approach we are using for this procedure. One is a scrotal. One is a scrotal approach and the other is inguinal approach. In scrotal approach, we are giving too high high vertical incision, and it's important to mark the external inguinal ring. If the obstruction is at the level above, so we will be able to extend the incision to the in the direction of external inguinal ring. And the inguinal approach is used in those conditions if the cause of obstruction is secondary to herniorrhaphy or archaeodopaxy. So we will give the incision on the previous scar, and that will lead direct access to the site of obstruction. This is a technique that how we are going to do it. The was difference is in size above and below the previous vasectomy site. It is then gently dilated with a fine forceps and irrigated with 22 FR NGK to verify patency. Then we will collect the fluid from the proximal vas and microscopically examine spermatozoa and their component. Now, if the spermatozoa or any sperm component are seen, so we will go for vasovasectomy. And if there is no spermatozoa are seen, then we will go for vasoepididymostomy. A 2-layer anastomosis with 9-0 nylon is performed. We are using nylon because there is a low risk of infection. There is a procedure that how we are going to do it. So for successful vasovasostomy, it depends on accurate mucosa to mucosa approximation, attention pre and leak-proof, in leak-proof anastomosis, good blood supply, healthy mucosa and muscularis, and a good atraumatic anastomotic technique. More recently, new literature has emerged investigating the use of robotic-assisted vasovasostomy with a promising result. In case if the length per anastomos is a short, so we can increase the length by dissecting the entire convoluted vase pre of its attachment to the level of epididymal tunica. The follow-up of the patient is important. The patient returned to the office for a wound check in 7 days. A semen analysis is obtained 3 months post-surgery. If there is no sperms are present by 18 months post-surgery, the operation is considered a failure. And the patient is advised about the alternative, either to repeat the procedure or to go for sperm extraction with an in vitro fertilization, donor insemination, and adoption. Failure typically represent an anastomotic scar, which occur in 3 to 12% of patients after vasovasostomy. If the patient develops normal semen concentration post-operatively and his wife does not conceive, consideration should be given to anti-sperm antibody on the surface of the sperms. Now, the third topic is assisted reproductive technique. Assisted reproductive techniques deals with the means of conception other than vaginal intercourse. A variety of methods currently exist to manipulate gametes and embryo outside of a woman's body and to return the result into the female reproductive tract. These techniques are collectively known as assisted reproductive technique. And these include in vitro fertilization, artificial insemination, and gametes intrafallopian transfer. But before going for this procedure, it is important to discuss the sperm retrieval technique and their storage. The sperm retrieval technique include if the level of obstruction is epididymis, then we can go either percutaneous or microsurgical epididymal sperm aspiration or and testicular exploration and sperm aspiration or testicular exploration and sperm extraction is done for non-obstructive spermia, testicular failure, spinal cord injury, and erectile dysfunction. But microsurgical TISA is a gold standard for testicular exploration and sperm extraction. After retrieval of the sperm, it is important to store it. And the sperm freezing or cryopreservation is the process of preserving sperm cell for a later use, which was introduced in 1950s. Cryopreserved specimen, when properly stored, can remain viable indefinitely. Pregnancy have been reported in case where the sperm was stored for 20 years before thawing and insemination. So the first topic of this artificial reproductive technique is artificial insemination. Artificial insemination is the minimal placement of the semen in the reproductive of the female by method other than the natural mating. Sperm is collected either from a partner or the donor, and then placed into the woman vagina or cervical colon or uterus. But most commonly, the use procedure is to place it directly into the uterus. Artificial insemination into the uterus. The treatment with artificial insemination with the husband sperm seems to be the valuable first choice treatment before starting more invasive and more expensive technique of assisted reproduction in many cases of human fertility. It is a simple, non-expensive technique which can be performed without expensive infrastructure. The first documented application of artificial insemination in human was done in London in the 1770 by John Hunter, which has been called in medical history the founder of scientific surgery. So a clot merchant with a severe hypospadias was advised to collect the semen which escaped during coitus in wound syringe and then inject that sample into the vagina. So for artificial insemination, as I mentioned, intrauterine insemination is the simplest and least expensive method of ART. During intrauterine insemination, a small catheter is placed through the cervical os to deliver sperm directly into the uterus, thus bypassing the cervical barriers upon sperms are proceed in the laboratory to enrich the motile fraction before intrauterine insemination. In the indication for intrauterine insemination, at least one fallopian tube must be normal, and may patient having a cervical picture or coitus problem or unexplained infertility or hostile cervical mucosa and immunological causes with the presence of anti-spermatozoal antibody in the cervical mucosa. The second topic for this is in vitro fertilization, in which the eggs are removed from the ovary and that mixed with the sperm in a laboratory that allowed to be fertilized, and that embryo are then placed into the uterus directly. This is the first test tube baby Lovius Brown Burns in July 1978. And she also gave naturally conceived a baby Cameron in 20 December 2006. So well over 2 million test tube babies have been born globally since Lovius 1978 birth after IUA. This is a subtype of in vitro fertilization called intracytoplasmic sperm injection, in which we directly inject the sperm into the egg. This is the sperm which we will direct inject into the egg, and after fertilization now we're demonstrating two nuclei, one from the parents and the other one from the father and the other from the mother. So the key difference between in vitro fertilization and artificial insemination is that artificial insemination and in vitro, in artificial insemination, we deliberate the introduction of sperm into a female cervix or uterine cavity. So we actually achieving in vivo fertilization, while in vitro fertilization is the process of fusion of egg and sperm outside the female body. Furthermore, artificial insemination involves injecting sperm into the uterus, decreasing the egg time of travel, while in vitro fertilization involves egg stimulation, retrieval, fertilization, and sperm. So this is a key difference between in vitro fertilization and artificial insemination. The other topic is gamete intra-fallopian transfer, in which a mixture of woman egg and sperm are placed into the fallopian tube during laparoscopy. So once fertilization is allowed, once inserted fertilization is allowed to occur. These are some advantages of in vitro fertilization. Intravitreal fertilization help many patients who would be otherwise unable to conceive. It has been used for a long time and has a safe track record. It can help a single woman and same-sex couple. In vitro fertilization can help to diagnose fertilization problem. Unused embryo can be donated to research or any other couples. Embryo can be used to screen for inherited disease, but it having also some disadvantage. So in vitro fertilization cycle may be unsuccessful. There may be associated side effect and risk. Multiple pregnancy can occur. There is a slightly higher chance of ectopic pregnancy. In vitro fertilization treatment can take an emotional or psychological toll. In vitro fertilization treatment can be expensive. Some patient may be considered about ethical issues. The last topic is adaptation. Adaptation is an alternative to infertility treatment. Literally taking over adoption means voluntarily adopting another as a one blood and treating them the same as one would their child. And legally, adaptation means a process of transferring the entire legal parentage of a child from his natural parents to the adoptive parents. law Pakistan. Every country is having their own law for adoption. In Pakistan, there is no specific law that deals with child adoption procedure. However, there is much other laws that supplement this process. The concept of child adoption under Islamic law. The Islamic Republic of Pakistan is a country built in the name of Islam. Its constitution states in bold letter that no such a law shall be made or enforced which is against the injunction of Islam and the Sunnah. In Islam, raising or adopting a child who is not one's genetic child is allowed and even encouraged, but that child does not become a legal child of the adopted parents. It means that the adopted child does not carry the same name as its sponsoring parents. So it should be called by their genetical parents, not by their own name. This is.
Thank you, Naseem.
This is the picture which I have given in the background. This is Lovius Brown, which is the first test tube born baby, born in 1978, July 1978, and these are parents. And this is Cameron, which borns in December 2006, which conceived naturally.
Have we discussed male factor?
Yes, sir. This was a topic on only on male-related infertility treatment.
So can we see?
Yes, sir.
Again?
Sir, it's include 4 topic: transurethral resection of the ejaculatory tract and vasovasostomy, sir. Sir, this is actually anatomy. Sir, this is transurethral resection of the ejaculatory tract, the counseling of the patient, sir, and workup for TURED, which include DRE and transrectal sonography. Historically, vasography was using for this, and semen analysis, for which we will be looking into fructose and azoospermia. And this is a technique, sir. These are the complications of TURED. The third topic, sir, vasovasostomy. Pre-op evaluation should be done. Again, counseling, sir. These are the indication for vasovasostomy. If the obstruction is the level of was difference, then we will go for vasovasostomy, and if the obstruction is at the level of epididymal obstruction, then we will go for vasoepididymostomies. And the goal of both procedures to restore genital tract and ultimately allow conception. And these procedures are only for non-obstructive azoospermia. These are the surgical approach. More recently, new literature has emerged investigating the use of robotic-assisted vasovasostomy with promising result. The follow-up of the patient. And these are assisted reproductive technique, which include in vitro fertilization, artificial insemination, gametes, and intrafallopian transfer.
बस ठीक है ये तो देख लिया. Riaz, any comments from the chair?
Actually, the male infertility, this is a vast field. Unfortunately, this is expensive and the failure rate is high. That's why nobody is doing dealing with these surgeries. Actually, the outcomes of vasovasostomy depends upon the experience of surgeon and the techniques, whether this is done by microsurgical or macro surgery, and the age of the female partner is very crucial. If the age is more than 40, then it's less chances of success. And other factors include the obstructive interval, which means the time period between the vasectomy and the time reversal of the vasovasostomy. According to the literature, if the obstructive interval is less than 33 years, then the success rate is more than 75%. And if it is less than 15 years, then this is somehow less than 40%. And other outcome depends upon the type of the quality of seminal fluid. It is containing the sperms, or is there's no presence of anti-sperm antibodies, then the success rate is high.
So as a urologist, what we should be doing, what we should supposed to be to know about the male fertility factor, infertility, as a urologist, because the ARTs are not the part of urology. But as a urologist, what we should be able to know about the male factor infertility? We should know about the curative causes of male infertility, like varicocele. Yes. And any patient who is coming with infertility must be examined for varicocele. Yes, sir. And the size of testes, and for the obstruction as a cause. Yes, sir. I think the main differentiating point of obstruction from non-obstructive is the fructose in the semen. And if it is fructose absent, that means the vas can be congenitally absent or can be obstructed. And what are the causes of obstruction of the ejaculatory ducts? Is the congenital obstruction be, and then it can be because of, have we discussed with this?
Yes.
And it can be simple because of prostatitis, for example, and can be cause of, for example, previous surgery on the, previous surgery on the prostate. Yes, sir. We should look for, and like prostatic cyst and other things. And for that, I think truss-guided transrectal ultrasound is the investigation of choice. And another thing is those patients who are coming with, for example, testicular cancers, they can end up with infertility. And so these patients should be offered cryopreservation of sperm before any procedure for the testicular cancer, like chemotherapy and for the RPLND. And another thing for us to know is how to retrieve the sperm for a patient who has got neurogenic bladder. तो अगर न्यूरोजेनिक ब्लैडर है तो उसको कैसे करते हैं, सेमेन रिट्रीव करना कैसे करते हैं फॉर द ARTs फॉर एग्जांपल? इसको कहते हैं वाइब्रेशन मेथड से, वाइब्रेशन मेथड से ट्रांसरेक्टल प्रो पास करते हैं और वाइब्रेशन कर देते हैं इसको प्रोस्टेट को और कलेक्ट करते हैं. So I think, and we should be knowing about these things like PISA, MESA, TISA, and TZ, and micro TZ. And especially if there is a single testis, for example, testicular cancer, then this sperm can be retrieved during the archaeectomy and open the testes, and by the micro TZ method can be retrieved from even a single tube. Yes. Can be retrieve the testes. And even some patients, in some cases, the testes, this sperm have been retrieved from postmortem cases. And so I think as a urologist, we should know about these things, how to retrieve these things, and how to localize the obstruction as a cause of infertility. And we should know about the various methods of varicocele ligation as a cause, and we should look for varicocele. Yes, in all those cases. ठीक है. And बाकी तो ये है कि अगर मिसाल तौर पर indications, we should be knowing about the indications of testicular biopsy, and we should be knowing what are the indications of vasography the importance is to how to localize the site of obstruction. Yes. And बाकी जो है वो ARTs जो है, we should be knowing about that theoretically, but it's not the domain of a urologist. So I think maybe next time we can discuss about these things about in detail about the PISA, MISA, and TISA.
Yes.
And one thing more, I think those who are present in the MESOT conference, there was a presentation by multi-organ transplantation, and the artificial नहीं, लेकिन ये है कि uterine transplant has been done successfully, and a patient has a baby after uterine transplantation. So if the uterus is diseased because of anything, like for example cancer or anything has been removed, or it's not functioning, then the uterine transplant has been done.
Yes, sir.
And testicular transplantation has also been done as a male infertility factor. And the interstitial cells are bleeding, and the testosterone producing cells have been injected into the testes to produce the testosterone and sperm.
Yes, sir.
So these are the newer things as a urologist we should be knowing about that. And especially how to retrieve the semen from the neurogenic bladder, and how to retrieve the sperm from a testicular cancer patient.
Yes.
And they should be counseled before any treatment like RP-LND or chemotherapy or archaeectomy for the cryo preservation of the sperm or sperm bank.
Yes, sir.
This is what
yes, sir.
Thank you. But otherwise, it was excellent talk. I like it. I hope all have liked it and gain benefit from your talk. Excellent talk. Thank you very much.
Any query?
Any comments, queries,
Bilal?
questions, any discussion?
बिलाल ना बोले तो ये अच्छा नहीं लगता.
सर ये तो ज्यादती हो जाएगी. ऐसे ही दो बातें हैं, बड़ी बहुत जोर से कहने का दिल चाह रहा है मेरा. इन्होंने माशाल्लाह अच्छी तरह प्रेजेंटेशन दी है, वेरी गुड माशाल्लाह, बट यू हैव कॉपी पेस्टेड एवरीथिंग माशाल्लाह. दो इसके एथिकल एस्पेक्ट्स हैं माशाल्लाह. सारे मुसलमान बैठे हैं यहाँ पे, तो आई थिंक इट शुड बी मेंशन्ड सिंस ही हैज मेंशन्ड इट, सो आई शुड बी मेंशनिंग इट एज वेल. कि ना आर्टिफिशियल इंसेमिनेशन है, Islamically it can be only from the husband of the wife, not from anyone else. ठीक है ना? So as Muslim doctors, you should not be participating in anything which is against Muslim laws. And secondly, he mentioned that it can be for same-sex couples and single mothers. That is also not allowed. ठीक है ना? So you should not be participating in anything which is against the laws of Islam. As Muslim doctors, you go anywhere, England, Ireland, America, anywhere. You should be putting things in perspective and then deciding about involving in anything that comes to you. Sorry.
Thank you for comments.
Thank you, sir.
Or anything else from the audience? Any discussion? Any questions? And
I want to add something in the surgical technique for vasostomy. Once we are going for the vasostomy and we are counter the difficulty in achieving the length, the other methods should be done prior to mobilization of communicative vas, including you can mobilize the vas proximally in the inguinal region, and then below to the scrotal region, and then उसके बाद जो है ना आपकी vas की communicative ट्यूब की mobilization आ जाती है, then आप epididymis को भी mobilize कर सकते हैं, and उसके बाद फिर आप क्या आती है कि transposition of testes with cross वेसोवेसोस्टोमी के साथ, जो लास्ट ऑप्शन है. और देन बिल्कुल जो लास्ट में चांस है वो आपका ट्रांसप्लांट ऑफ टेस्टिस है, आप कहीं पर भी कर सकते हैं उसका. सो वो आई डोंट नो कि कहाँ पर करते हैं, मगर ये लिखा हुआ है कि आप ट्रांसप्लांट कर सकते हैं, कि ऑटो ट्रांसप्लांट कर सकते हैं टेस्टिस का. सो दीज आर द टेक्निक्स टू इम्प्रूव दी टू इनकाउंटर द शॉर्ट लेंथ ऑफ वास ड्यूरिंग वेसोवेसोस्टोमी.
You can just, if one test is smaller than the other, then you can transplant or you can reimplant the vast difference of one testis into the other. So it's a crossover testicular, this is vessel anastomosis.
Yes,
so that's like TUU, transureterostomy. So it's like a vasovasostomy from one side to the other.
Yes.
Can be.
Sir, he is asking about that why we are not treating infertile patient in our OPDs.
In our OPDs, yes. So I think we need a specialized person who is interested in that, and we need to develop this infertility clinic, a specialized clinic. And in the past, we were doing this vasovasostomy and vasoepisiotomy, but the results were not good. So, but we are doing this testicular biopsy, vasography, and we are doing varicocele ligation, especially the subinguinal approach. But we need for the infertility clinic, we need a team which should include the embryologist, should include the urologist, should include the gynecologist and the laboratory people. And it needs a complex structure for a successful infertility clinic if you want to start. So I think it's not in our priority at now, but maybe in the future somebody will take it as an area of interest, and we can have a infertility clinic and andrology clinic in the SIUT as well, maybe in the future.
Thank you, sir.